just as real as me sitting here looking to you, that reality of where I was that real. It's not something, it was a place I was at. I was conscious. I didn't know, I was aware of myself, but I didn't know where I was at.
Hey everyone, on today's episode of Milwaukee Uncut, we have some stories that you are not going to believe. Our guest was once pronounced dead for 45 minutes after grounding a plane and being struck by lightning. He's also a man of action. He once jumped out of his vehicle to stop a woman who ended up becoming his wife on the street, and since then he has started a church, Christian Faith Fellowship, on the north side of Milwaukee, which is filled with 2,000 members every single week. He's built a community center. Bishop Darrell Hines joins me on today's episode. Did you enjoy growing up in the church?
Yes, it's interesting because I had my wonderful moments being a part of the church. Then I had my challenging moments. You know, when you don't know anything else, then it's easier to do it. But as I became of age, you know, that's when we were raised in the church. When it was Pentecostal church. It was real strict back, 40, 50. I won't go any further than that. Years ago, I mean, very strict. We couldn't play any sports. We couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't play any card games. All we could do was go to church, go to school, and go to a neighbor's house or a relative's house. And if we played church or we played house. We couldn't. I mean, seriously, we couldn't. It was very strict. And then I had 3 sisters before I had a brother. And so, I learned how to jump double dutch, and I could play jacks, and I could do hopscotch pretty good. But the boy games, I couldn't do it because they wouldn't let us play basketball, football, baseball, or anything like that.
Really? I want to go back to how you met your wife, Pamela Hines, who was not a member of that church. Can you tell me about that and how you eventually got her to marry you?
Yeah. First of all, she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I didn't realize the jewel or the joy that I would have being married to Pam. But when I saw Pam the first time, and people think this story is unbelievable, but it is. When I first saw her, she was 12 years old, and she came with some neighbors to my father's church, and I was a musician there playing in the organ, and she was from a different Reformation. And when we say Reformation, we're Pentecostal. She was from a Baptist church. And so even though we had similar doctrine, we didn't always go about it the same way.
They were a little more lenient.
A lot more lenient. Yeah, a lot more lenient on that side. Good. Yeah, very lenient. And so she came, and I saw her, and she came a few more times. And what my mom did was my mom found out where she came from, and she called her mother, and Pam was no longer 12 years old, called her mother and said, "I have a son that your daughter's going to marry." And of course, Miss Hazel, she wasn't church at all, so she was like, "I'm not sending my daughter back."
Your mom called her mom.
My mom called her mom, who didn't know her,
and she's 12.
And she's 12. And she said,
and you're
15.
Okay.
And she said, your daughter is going to marry my son. And of course, her mother wasn't churched at all, so she just kind of snatched her out of the picture, just moved her.
I probably would have been a little alarmed by that phone call.
Yeah, she snatched her out of the picture. So, periodically I would see her, but I think it was like 3 years later I saw her, and she was beautiful. I saw her walking out. I was going to get me some music at the time. It was called 8 tracks. I know I'm dating myself, but it was going to give me a couple 8 tracks to put in my car, play some wonderful music. I had a nice car, worked hard for it. And I saw her, and my friend was with me, and I said, "Man, I think that's Pam." So we stopped the car, and sure enough, it was her, and she's just beautiful. And so I told her I would walk with her home. And so when we were walking, I told her, I said, "Listen, if you be my girlfriend," I was 18 and she's 15 now. So I promise you, when you get old enough, I'm going to marry you. And so we got to the house. I said, "Now I need you to call me back before the week is out." With no cell phones then. I don't know if you want to continue with this. And so to make a long story short, she called me at the 6th day, because if the 7th day I would have called her.
So you're riding in the car. You stop the car, jump out, chase her down.
Yes.
And give her an ultimatum right there.
All of that. Got out of the car, and ran her down and told her, I walked her to where she was going and told her while we were walking I was going to marry her.
It's a man of action right there.
Well, I took some action then because mama didn't raise no fool.
What do you think of all these kids these days just swiping on their phones? You actually got out of a car and talked to someone.
They used to say this in the church: "The Lord is my shepherd, and I see what I want." So that's what that was all about. I wasn't going to let grass grow under my feet when it came down to her. Yeah, but that's when you had to, you couldn't text and none of that stuff. You had to go home to call or go to a phone booth or write a letter. It was all about hands-on and not this electric virtual stuff now we have to continue with.
So you start dating. What does her mom think of this?
Well,
who was kind of got that alarming phone call years prior and then probably hadn't heard anything of you.
Well, Pam was 15. Her mother allowed her to start dating at 15. And so I just reappeared. And the thing about it is that I was over there every chance I got because I could drive. I had my own car. I had my own job. I was managing a shoe store. So I could just show up whenever I wanted to. And she was in the 10th grade. And I was graduated, so started dating towards 10th grade, in 10th grade. So I would pick her up every day from school in my beautiful Mark V. But I was doing all that to keep all them little youngins back, like, don't even try it. This is my wife. I was just not married yet. And so people thought I was up at her school so much until some people thought I went to school there. I was at Mesmer on Capitol.
Did you come back and go to prom with her?
Yes, I went to prom with her. That was the only prom I could attend because remember I told you I was raised in a very strict home, and so we couldn't attend our proms. But by the time I was 18, I was like, I'm a grown man, and I can go to a prom if I want to.
Yeah,
and I had to ask them if I could do it.
Got permission. Then you got married shortly after that, right?
She graduated in '79, May of '79. She graduated from Mesmer High School. And in June of '79, we got married, 44 years ago.
Congrats on the 44 years.
Yes, it's the best decision I could have ever made. I could tell you a real funny story about that real quick. About 6 months before we got married, I was managing this shoe store. It was called Odd Lot Shoes. It was on 3rd Street down 3rd and State. It's all changed down there. But you can get in there and you go buy second shoes that were not quite right. They were an odd lot. And so this girl that I liked when I was a kid, about 12 years, I couldn't really like her, but she was beautiful to me. And she wouldn't give me the time of day, nothing. And so she came into our store. And I knew she knew my friend who was working with me. She came back another day. I was like, man, why does she keep coming in here? You got to tell her to stop. He said, she's coming here for you. I said, what?
Uh-oh.
And I mean, this is like a childhood dream.
You're dating Pam at this time.
I'm dating Pam at this time. Man. And so, I was like, well, maybe I should hold the horses for a minute because Tony is the girl of my dreams. Oh, I called her name. Oh, that's okay. It's a lot.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Shout out to Tony if she's listening.
She's absolutely beautiful. And so when I found out that she was interested in me, I just kind of started shifting my view towards her and told my dad, I said, now, Dad, listen, I don't think I'm going to marry Pam. I see this girl. She's beautiful. I just want to be with her. And I said, but don't tell Mama. And, because my mother was the patriarch of the house. She didn't play. And so I came home from work. I was still living at home. As soon as I came in the house, I heard my mother in the back room, Darrell Hines, come in here. And so I knew whenever she called your whole name, your life is about to be over. So I went in the room and she's like, what is this? I hear you're not going to marry Pam. And then she started crying. She says, I will beat you. I will move you to another part of the country. I will disown you. You will not be, that's the wife of your life. She just lit into me. She says, no, you call that girl and tell her you can't see her anymore. I said, call her. She said, call her now. And so I called her and I said, listen, my mom said, I can't see you anymore. She's like, your mother said you couldn't see me anymore? I said, yeah. She said, well, I don't think I want to see a man whose mother can tell him what to do. So it was real easy when I told her my mother said, but I almost messed up, man. I was fixing to blow her for real. Even though she was a nice person, I'm not saying negative. Pam was the one that I was to be married to, for sure.
I love that range, going from being a complete man of action to kind of breaking up with someone because your mom made you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you got to understand.
Got all ends of the spectrum there.
Any child raised back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they understand. All of them know what I'm talking about.
I would not have messed with her either, based on what you said.
No.
All right, let's fast forward a couple years. Can you tell me about take us back to July 17th, 1981?
Yeah, it was a very life-changing experience for me. Many people know it, but many people don't know it. I was working for it was called Republic Airlines then, and I was a station agent. Gate agents are the ones who work the counter. Station agents are the ones who park when you do the cones and unload the planes and get the paperwork. And so it was a really bad storm. Pam and I had been married about a year and a half. As a matter of fact, she was 6 months pregnant with DJ. And DJ's like, he's my oldest son. I have two boys, DJ and Brandon. And so she was going to her family reunion in Memphis, Tennessee, and we could fly free. And so, of course, I walked on the plane, and I waved her off on the ramp because I was working that day. I was working second shift, and I saw her plane, go. And she said, I told God. Out of the blue, she said, I was praying, and I told God, don't let him cheat on me while I'm gone. I didn't even know that would have been a thought in her mind because I had to stay here and work. And so, sure enough, I went to break, and there was this girl there at my break at about 6 o'clock, and we were looking at each other, and we got to talking, and and it was real easy to set up a date with her after work. So my wife was out of town, and it just all. I don't know. I just kind of got weak for a moment. Just temptation entered in, and so we were gonna set up a date after I got off of work. Well, I went back and worked the first plane. I went back to work. It was a lightning storm. All the jetways were filled. The little corridors that you walk down. So we were parking planes on the ramp and letting the manual stairs down. And so it was a lightning storm. It was really bad. So I had to let the stairs down manually. So I went and let them down out of the nose of the plane, grabbed the railing of the plane to extend it. Lightning struck the tail end of the plane, and the plane hadn't been grounded. So I had 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot on the rail, and the lightning, I grounded the lightning. It came out, it went all the way down and it came out my feet. Knocked me 15 feet in the air from what I was told. I landed on my face, and my heart stopped beating. And so lightning, it really killed me. I didn't stay dead, but it killed me. My heart stopped beating, no pulse or anything. And so they began to work, really feverishly to try to revive and resuscitate me. A couple other people got struck got effects of the lightning. One man, it burnt his face. Another lady, it paralyzed her from her waist down. And so they began to work on me, and just it was with no success. So they had me in the back of the paramedic wagon. Make a long story short, connected to the EKG machines, flatlining. Just electric defibrillators. They did that to me a couple times, and just flatlining. And so this lady who I worked with, she was a Christian born again believer, and she just began to pray. And she says, "God, I know you have a work for this young man. Give him his life back." And she said, as she began to pray that, she said she could feel the presence of God in the back of the paramedic wagon. And I began to breathe after 45 minutes. She said, it's just like the EKG machine that was registering flatline, it started to pump a line. Just, paramedics kind of thrown off because they were through. They weren't going to do that anymore.
They thought you were dead.
They thought
done.
They thought I was done for. As a matter of fact, my sister called the airport because it got out. They called. Donald called and said something happened to Darrell. So my older sister called out there where I was working at, and the lady was like, "Well, I won't tell you anything." My sister said, "Well, I work in the hospital. I've seen the worst." She said, "Well, your brother got killed by lightning," and so she didn't know that I was on my way. So that was what she got. So she was, so she got to pull her stuff together, and she found out where I was at the hospital. She found out where are they taking him? She said, well, he got killed, but they're taking him to St. Luke. He's not breathing, and all. So it was really bad news. And so, of course, my mother, she got out there, and my mother's very spiritual, and they told her, that I was in a state I would never come out of. Every 6 to 8 seconds, I'd sit up and scream like a tortured animal. My tongue would extend past the bottom of my chin because they said I'd gone too long without oxygen to my brain, and I would be like that for the rest of my life if I lived 2 hours. And my mother was like, no, God's going to bring him out of that tonight. And my mother was very, very seriously influenced by the Word of God in the Bible. That's why I am who I am today, because of my mother and my father, of course. But she just said, no, God's going to bring him out at the night. She began to pray. And my mother, in the Pentecostal church, we dance. It's called when the Holy Spirit hits you. And so my mother, and right there in the hospital, she just started praying and praising. And the doctors thought something was wrong with her, so they wanted to sedate her. And she was like, no, I'll do what y'all do. I'm going to do what I do. And so, she just did, speaking in tongues and all the things that Pentecostal people do right there in the hospital. And after about 2.5 hours, I started sitting up, but I wasn't screaming. And in very slow tone, I was saying, Lord, bless my soul. Save me, Jesus. And the ironic thing is that when I came to another 6 hours, I had complete amnesia. So I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my family was. And so while I was at that state, I began to pray and didn't even realize it.
You regained consciousness to an extent. You just didn't know what was going on.
No, complete memory loss. I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't know. And when I was, I tell people this all the time because they ask me, well, did you see a light or anything when you were dead? Well, first of all, I didn't know I was dead because I still had a consciousness of myself. I just didn't know where I was.
I watched a video and you said something like you got transported to another place, it seemed, and you were there, but no one else was there, and you didn't know what was going on during that 45-minute stretch.
And I don't know how long that period of time was. And I can tell you this because people sometimes, when they hear people talk about their experience once their heart stopped beating, some people have different realities. But just as real as me sitting here looking to you, that reality of where I was that real. It's not something. It was a place I was at. I was conscious. I didn't know. I was aware of myself, but I didn't know where I was at. And I'd never seen anything like it before. It's nothing that I had in my mind, nothing that I heard from the Bible. It was a total different awareness, and it was a color, a real gloomy color I'd never seen before. And it was puzzling to me because after I began to regain my memory and remember my experience, I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't see no light at the end of the tunnel, none of that kind of stuff.
Not like the gates of heaven just opened.
Yeah. It was almost looking like I was on the other road. I don't know for sure, but it's wasn't no light. I tell you that much. And so for years I wouldn't share it with people, but it's real. I can say this: there is a reality of consciousness after your heart stops beating and you die. We call it eternity in the Bible, but I can say this to people who never read the Bible, that you will experience a reality of living after you leave this body. I did, and it's just as real to me as sitting here on this couch. Mm-hmm. And so I tell people all the time that I'm a preacher, and so my goal is what the Bible says, is that we will spend eternity with Jesus Christ. And so I can tell people, if you make that choice, you can make it. But even if you don't make that choice, you're going to be somewhere in eternity, because that's real.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Do you think your reality in that next life is based on how you live your life on earth?
Of course I do. I believe that. I believe that because of the Bible. And I believe the Bible. And, it's the more intelligent we become, the more your faith has to be in the Bible, because the Bible doesn't always make a lot of sense to people that are very intelligent. But by faith, I believe what the Bible says, and it's real to me. Heaven is real to me. Hell is real to me because the Bible says it's nothing I make up. And so when I preach simply from the Bible, not my opinions. As a matter of fact, I never brought my experience up after because I couldn't find it in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? So mm-hmm. I only preached what's in the Bible.
How, obviously, that was a complete life-changing experience, but what did that set you on this path? It seemed like at that point you're in your early 20s, you're working for an airline. I don't know, did you want to go into the church and be a preacher, or?
No,
That just changed everything for you.
I liked the career. I liked being in the airlines, but my love was music. And so I was a songwriter, a singer. I had my own band, my own group and everything. We would travel and sing. It was, that's what I wanted to do. I've been singing, believe it or not, for about 60 years. I started singing when I was 5 years old with my sister. She was 3 and I was 5, and my mother taught us harmony at that age. And so in the church, that was your outlet. And so they would put us up and we'd be singing. So I've been singing all of my life. And so that's what I was going to do. I'm a wonderful writer of gospel music. I'm one of the best, man. I'm trying to tell you. But you would never know that because a lot of it didn't get recorded. But I got a lot of good songs. I got a lot of wonderful songs that as a matter of fact, maybe I'll get to record them before I.
You got albums out there?
Yeah, I got a few of them out there. My sister has recorded 2 albums with my songs on it. Then I did one release with my songs on it. But that lightning sent me in a different direction. After I began to get my memory back of what happened to me, I just wanted to really know that relationship with God outside of what I was influenced by the church. I just wanted to pursue it on my own. So I did a lot of things that I had never done before, doing a lot of fasting and going without food for weeks and praying and reading the Bible for myself. Got down to like 130 pounds. I was no more than 150 at the time. My father was like, man, what are you doing? It's like, Dad, I gotta know this. I gotta know God. I gotta know the God that gave my life back. So it really changed my life. It gave me a real success. And I had a visitation in the hospital where I heard the Lord say, "You take care of my business, and I'll take care of you. Tell the dying world about a living Christ." And that's what I've been doing ever since then. Mm-hmm. Traveled all over this world doing that.
What is that like? Is that just like a voice coming in your head?
It's like a presence. That's the best way I can do it. It's like it's a presence you can feel, you can't see it, and you can hear it. And it's like it's in your mind, it's in your spirit, and you know it just as clear because it's not something you're making up. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know to do that. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know what his business was or what to take care of. So when I had that conversation in my spirit with him, that's when I took a different turn in life and began to pursue how to do that effectively.
Mm-hmm. And that led to you founding Christian Faith Fellowship, I believe, on the south side of Milwaukee. You're off Good Hope right now. Can you tell me about the early beginnings of that and how it's grown into what it is today?
Well, again, everything that I do, I believe I'm doing what God has instructed me to do. That's how I live now. So I had been traveling and preaching, and about 8 years after it happened to me, I felt impressed to start a church. And one of my friends told me, man, you probably need to do that. And so I was away preaching at a church, and I called my wife and said, listen, I need you to find a church building because when I get home, we're going to start a church. And of course, I'd never done anything like that before. And my daddy wasn't with it because I was his musician. He didn't want me to leave. And so I didn't have a whole lot of instructions as to how to do it. But she did. She found a building, Pastor Norm on the south side. He was pastoring Bayview Assembly. And she asked him if we could come into his church. It was the only church he could find. And of course, it was so far back then, black people didn't come to the south side. That was just, we weren't on the south side. It was Milwaukee was very segregated. Yep. And so I was like, when I got home, I was like, you found a church? She said, yes. I said, on the south side. What kind of church we gonna have on the south side? But this guy was kind enough to let us come in, and we started at 1:30. And so we were gonna try to buy the building. But after the first year, you couldn't find a seat in the building. And so by the second year, it was just packed, and we realized we had to move. It only seated about 150 people. And we packed it out in just 2 years. And so I was impressed to find some land on the north side and just build a building. And of course, that was a process. So we went to another Lutheran church on 15th and Keefe. It seated about 350 people. And it looked like the moment we got in there, it was jam-packed. We had to sit chairs out. So then we went to Burrow Middle School. But we found some land in the process. And in the 6th year, we broke ground on Good Hope Road. I won't go through all the challenges that we had. Mm-hmm. But we started building the building after we were like 6 years old. And because there was nothing that everywhere we went was available to us, we just grew so fast. It was just packing. People were coming from all walks of life and all different backgrounds. And of course, we were serving them as much as we knew the things of God and also social things.
Did you envision it becoming what it is today? You have a church, you have a high school, community center,
grade school. No, I never knew I was going to pastor a big church. I didn't even know how to do that. I just was on pastor. So there were no churches the size that ours became in Milwaukee that I could go to. There were no black congregations as large as ours. So it was the largest black congregation. And we were calling ourselves kind of multicultural because we had some other race people attending, but it was predominantly an African-American church. And so, I tell people all the time, God has a real sense of humor because I did horrible in school. And when I say I did horrible in school, I don't even remember being taught how to count. I just know I know how. I just don't remember anything positive from school. Maybe couldn't play no games, and I hated school. And so, so when I told the church after we were in our seventh year, we built the building, and I said, now we got to build a school. And so the committee got together, and so we're going to build a grade school. And we built a grade school, and the committee got together, and they called it Darrell Hines Academy. And I was like,
he couldn't pass his classes, but send your kids here.
Exactly. I'm like, God really has sense of humor. I got a school with my name on it. So, we didn't know. So we built the school, and then we bought the plaza on 80th, and we built a youth center, and then we put a high school there. And there's some other things we're going to be doing, but those things happened. Then we were building we were in increments of 5 years. We were doing something to help affect our community.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to the standard five-ish quick questions sponsored by Central Standard. If you could spend a day with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
You won't know the person I'm going to tell you about, but the founder of the Church of God in Christ, his name was Charles Harrison Mason.
When did he live?
He died in 62. He died in the 60s. And
so you never met him?
Never got a chance to meet him. He was a phenomenal man. And if I could spend a day with anybody, it would be with him.
I like that answer. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Enjoy your life and don't work so hard to accomplish things that you don't take the time to enjoy them. I think that when you get focused on accomplishing a goal and you're purpose-driven, you have to, of course, let that purpose drive you, but you can't let that purpose move you away from enjoying the life that God has given you. And so I would tell myself, you got it. You're going to get it done. Just enjoy some other things.
I like that. Brandon Williams chimed in with a fan-submitted question.
Really?
He said, how do you manage to look like the younger brother of your two sons?
Well, I'm going to tell y'all the secret. Usually when you get a certain age, there are certain things that start happening. So you have to do some things to keep it from happening. So I exercise. I don't eat a lot. I use a lot of dye. And let me see. And I use my wife's. She has skin products. My wife has. I use her skin products, and then I try to rest. When I sleep, I sleep. So I still sleep 8 to 10 hours.
Did you do anything with your hair? Personally interested.
Yeah. I have 3 brothers. My youngest brother has hair, and the 2 in between are bald headed, and so. I would probably let my gray grow out if I didn't have hair on my head, but because I have hair on my head, I'm not ready to see my hair black, my hair gray. I got to keep my beard black. And really, what inspires me to keep myself like this, because every now and then somebody will mistake DJ as me. No, I'm not him. That's my dad. That's probably what gives you inspiration to get up and go jogging. I'm telling you, when they start mistaking you for somebody, it's your son.
Love it. Michael Shepard was wondering, how do you, this is kind of a backhanded compliment question here. How do you manage to hit a golf ball so far at your age?
Oh, well, I think it's technique. I had some techniques, and then I try to keep my upper body strength going. I do a lot of push-ups. I was at one time I was up to 500 push-ups a day.
Wow.
Yeah, for real. I just messed my shoulders up. I just I always, like I said, I'm so driven by what I want to do until sometimes I overdo it. And I wouldn't stop at 300. I had to get to 500. And I'm not making it up. That's the truth. I can get down. I do more push-ups than you right now. I haven't been doing them like in about a month because it just, my shoulders give me up. I could do you.
We will not show the audience that right now. Speaking of Michael Shepard, I have a personal question. You have a very, very well put together fashion sense.
Okay.
I feel like Michael Shepard spends more time planning his outfits out than worrying about his golf score, and he just likes having matching outfits at this thing. And he's got the Jordans. He has the price tag flying off his hat still. Like, do you think that's a little over the top?
I think if you're going to dress, then your game has to be its best. So
Michael Shepard has some work to do. He's a phenomenal simulator player, but on the course.
I just played with him, and he was like, Michael was hidden, man. I was with Michael a couple of days ago, and he was like, he had it. I had to give him a couple. I told him he probably needs to come out with me more because he made me play better. I was hitting the ball far and just. It's a great time.
He can hit it.
Yeah, he can hit it. He can hit it.
I'll give him that. A lot of potential.
I told him he was playing better because he was playing with me. I think
you're probably a nice, relaxing presence for him out there. He can get a little high strung. He's 110% guy at anything he does. I
got a funny story with Mike, DJ, and another, I think it was a newbie. I'm not sure. We were out on the course, and just a couple of years ago when I was playing with Mike now. And Mike at that time, he was really getting his game together, so it took him a little longer to get his shots going. So,
he can stand over it.
Yeah, so we got to the back nine. I was like, guys, I'm gonna hit, and I hit, and they were up there, and I said, and I'm gonna go and hit again. And I would hit again, and so I just went on to play by myself, and I think I was back home, and they were still on like the 15th hole or something like that. I was like, I couldn't take it. I don't have that kind of patience.
I cannot wait to send him that clip.
But he's much better now. I enjoy him.
He is. We love Michael Shepard. What do you like most about Milwaukee, and what is one thing you would change about it if you could?
The older I get, I would change the weather, but let's talk about something that's real. Something that's real. I like I used to like the slowness of Milwaukee. Milwaukee at one time, it was a bigger city, but it didn't have the fast city vibe. And it was more family oriented. If I could change anything, I would try to change it back to that, because we need families to be responsible to each other and for each other. Sometimes our youth, when they don't have that structure, it doesn't bring. They're not real governed in their actions, and it can be havoc on any people. So I would if I could change anything, I would, and I do that. I encourage family. I would really try to bring the focus back to family first before we focus outside of the family. And what I do like about Milwaukee is that I've been here all my life, and I'm familiar with it, and my family is here. All my brothers and sisters are here. I only have one sister who's not here. She lives in Phoenix, and she pastors their church we planted. So all of my connections are here. And
final question: what are you most proud of, or what would you consider your greatest accomplishment?
This is going to seem funny to you, but seeing my children raise my grandchildren, seeing remember I told you family, seeing the institution of family in a third generation that started with me, with my sons and their children. I can't explain that kind of joy, but it's something that you can't make up. It's something that you just experience when you get there. And that's probably one of my greatest. My wife, of course, will be my constant, but seeing my children raise their children and the respect and the regard that they're raising them with for family and for life, it's probably one of the most greatest accomplishments I've ever experienced.
Bishop Hines, thanks for coming on today, and thank you for all you do for the community here in Milwaukee.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in to this episode of Milwaukee Uncut. We would love it if you hit that subscribe button and also liked this episode. That helps us get more eyes on Milwaukee Uncut. Thanks again for your support.